riding along and I saw this bear lonely little thing left by the side of the road. Poor little thing. So we're going to rescue it. So we've got a bit of a mascot now. I'll think of a name for you, but you're coming home. Alrighty. Right, so quick stop by the side of the road. I have completely destroyed that exhaust gasket. So what I'm carrying with me is this stuff. Now I like to think of this as Get-Yourself-Home-Goo. So we're going to rip that hot exhaust off and just slather some of this on, and hopefully that'll get us home again. Alrighty, so we have got our liquid gasket in there. Ideally you'd leave this overnight to set, but I'm still about 20 k's away from home and I don't really have the luxury to wait. So all we can do is just tootle on home, no more high-speed runs, and we should be alright. Fingers crossed. Gets much later in the afternoon. Alright, we're sitting on 40 kilometres distance. Alright, I hope this rubber doesn't just blow straight out, but we'll just tootle on home and see how we go. Well, Teddy and I made it home safely, and here the exhaust is leaking away, but it got us home. As you can see, aside from the exhaust leak, the engine's running really well. Even with a close up to the exhaust pipe like that, there's no smoke. And wait for it. Oop. There we go. What I have noticed with this particular setup, it works similar to the boost bottle. It sucks a whole heap of extra fuel back up the line, and to keep it pressurized, I just make sure that the petcock on the back tank is always switched off. But it does mean that there is an excess of fuel up there, so it does take a little bit longer to shut off after I close the valve there. But all in all, it's done really well. I will have to go and replace that exhaust gasket because I am out of spares. That was the crappy painted over one that came in one of the kits, and my last good gasket I blew out when I bent the head on the exhaust there. So we'll have to tour the local bike shops and see what we can get. What else? Teddy survived. Welcome home, Teddy. Turn our lights off before we forget. Alright. and that trip was 61 kilometers. Alright. Alrighty, so we needed a gasket. Now the closest we could get was this Briggs & Stratton one, which it's way too big, and in order to get it to fit, I'm going to have to drill out these holes, which shouldn't be too much of an issue, but if it works, then that'll be great. Alright, today we're doing a fairly simple modification. We're going to replace the boot here, because as you can see, it's been melting, and that little cap on the inside has been coming off. So what we're going to do is we're going to pull this boot off. We're going to replace it with a proper good quality NGK one. Now this melting came about because I changed from the number 7 plug back down to the number 5, still using NGK of course. But that meant that the coating here was getting super hot, doing its job. The bike does perform better with the hotter plug-in. 7 was just a bit too cold for this application. So what we need to do first is fetch the cap off that spark plug, because in there is the larger head, whereas these ones come with a smaller head. Let's just see if we can find one. Alright, so we're doing the opposite today. Normally you have to unscrew this cap. To fit that plug. But because we're using an uprated plug cap, you just give that a very gentle. Now you don't want to squeeze this or you'll deform it, but you do want to make sure that it's on there nice and tight. There we go. Right. So we just go and pull the cap off that. As we can see there, it's a little bit manky and corroded. So we'll just go get the steel wool and we'll tidy that up. Righty, dirty contacts are the bane of all electrical systems. So give that a good clean, make sure there's no corrosion, give it a good dry. Now, with a little bit of elbow grease, that will slot right into home. Universal fit. Now you'll feel that bite, give it a firm push, make sure it's on all the way, and then we should just be able to stick it on. Alright, so moment of truth. And we're done. Now we'll just go and take it for a spin and try and get it started. Right. So We have our upgraded spark plug boot installed and ready to go. It appears our problem isn't fuel delivery, as there was still fuel in the big tank. It appears we have some carby issues. Now, just in case the camera on my chest didn't pick it up, I've pulled apart the carburetor, and what had happened is the jet had vibrated loose. So just to rule out fuel, I'm going to start it on the auxiliary fuel, but then I'd like to try and get going on the main fuel. So I seem to be having carburettor problems. It was just leaking fuel out, which you wouldn't have been able to see. So the jet had vibrated loose, so I've screwed that back in. Now, it's not the first time I've had fuel just pouring out of the carby like that before. I'm pretty sure that's why I lost most of my fuel when I did the last big ride in the tank. Alrighty, wishing my luck. So took the clutch plate off, to have a look in there, because pulling the clutch in, it was starting to get a bit you know, squeaky and grindy. And although there's visible wear there, there's nothing really that suggests to me that they need to be replaced just yet. You know, they get too low, there's a chance they might contact around there, which might be what's happening. But if we look at the actual inside of the plate there, there's nothing that really looks like there's critical damage going on. You can see it's a little tiny bit of clutch material up in there, which we might be able to get out by that's pretty well locked in. But while we've got this open, we're going to go ahead and reapply some grease into these wheels, because I have done, well, 134 Ks and there's still some fuel in the bottom of that tank. $468.4 kilometers since putting the speedo on, at least. And this has been on for maybe 50 Ks since before that. So presuming we've done about 500 Ks, it's a good time to get in there and reapply some grease. It's better to do it earlier than later anyway, and if you look right back in there, we can sort of see that all the grease has been burnt up, and whilst there's still a little amount in there, it's not worth taking the risk